The wind screamed through the northern reaches like a dying wolf. Commander Aldric Ironwood stood at the frost-covered window of his war room, watching snow devils dance across the courtyard below. 62 winters had carved their history into his weathered face, each scar a testament to battles won and brothers lost. His left hand, missing 2 fingers from an old war wound, rested against the cold stone. The pain was always worse in winter, but winter's cold was nothing compared to the ice spreading through his veins. Silver rot. The healer's words echoed in his mind like a death knell. 6 months, maybe less. The disease was rare among shifters, a corruption that turned their greatest gift into their executioner. Each transformation brought agony. Each shift accelerated the decay. Soon he wouldn't be able to take his wolf form at all, and for an alpha king that was death itself. Aldric coughed into his palm. When he pulled his hand away, silver-flecked blood stained his skin. He wiped it on the dark fabric of his tunic, another secret added to the weight he carried. "Uncle?" He turned to find Kyle in the doorway. 19 years old, broad-shouldered and arrogant, the boy carried himself like a king already crowned. His dark hair was disheveled, his eyes slightly too bright. Aldric had seen that look before, in soldiers who relied on bloodlust potions to push past their limits. "The council is waiting," Kyle said. His voice held an edge of impatience. "They're demanding a decision about succession. Let them wait." Aldric moved to the massive oak table where maps of the northern territories sprawled like frozen seas. 7 pack lands, united under his rule for 40 years. United through blood and steel and the kind of choices that haunted a man's sleep. "Where are your brothers?" "Cousins," Cale corrected with a sneer. "Roderick is in the library as usual. Gareth is drunk in the eastern barracks. Marcus is practicing sword forms in the training yard, pretending he's not terrified." Aldric's jaw tightened. 4 nephews, orphaned when he'd killed their fathers during the blood unification. The price of peace had been 3 brothers' lives, cut down by his own hand when they'd sided with rebellion. Some nights he could still hear their death screams. "Assemble them in this great hall," Aldric commanded. "All 4, 1 hour." Kyle's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "To announce your choice? About time. Everyone knows it should be me. I'm the eldest. It's tradition." "Tradition built this kingdom," Aldric said quietly. "And tradition will destroy it if we're not careful. Now go." The boy left, radiating wounded pride. Aldric returned to his window, watching the world turn white with fresh snow. Somewhere beyond these walls, enemies circled like wolves around wounded prey. They could smell his weakness, sense his mortality. The question wasn't if they would strike, but when. A knock at the door, softer than Kyle's imperious entrance. "Enter." Maris, the head housekeeper, stepped inside. At 55, she moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd survived 4 decades of court politics by keeping her eyes down and her mouth shut. But Aldric had always sensed there was more to her than she showed. "My lord, there's a messenger at the gates. A woman. She says she has a proposition for you." Maris's weathered hands twisted in her apron. "She gave me this to present to you." She held out a sealed letter. The wax bore no house sigil, but the handwriting on the outside made Aldric's blood run cold. "Commander Ironwood, I know you're dying." He broke the seal with trembling fingers and read. "I know about the silver rot. I know your nephews are unfit. I know you have 6 months at most to prevent civil war. I offer my services as war trainer and strategist. 6 months to forge boys into leaders. My price: restoration of my family's seized lands and a seat on your council. You killed my father's sons during the blood unification. Consider this poetic justice. Train the daughter instead. Come alone to the widow's ridge at moonrise if you want to survive what's coming. Seraph Blackthorn, *. Blackthorn. The name alone should have sent him reaching for his blade. Duke Cassian Blackthorn had been his greatest enemy during the blood unification, a rebel lord who'd nearly torn the North apart. Aldric had personally executed Cassian's 3 sons when they'd led raids against civilian settlements. The Duke himself had died 2 years ago, presumably taking his hatred to the grave. But apparently he'd left a daughter behind. "Send word to the council that the meeting is postponed," Aldric said, his mind already calculating angles and risks. "Tell my nephews to prepare for a journey. We leave at first light." "My lord is that wise. If this is a trap, then I'll spring it on my terms." He folded the letter carefully. 40 years ago, I chose blood over peace. Let's see if choosing an enemy over tradition serves me better. Widow's Ridge was a desolate scar across the northern mountains, a place where the wind cut like knives and nothing grew but thorns. It had earned its name during the blood unification, when a battle had left 300 widows mourning their dead. Aldric had fought in that battle, had helped create those widows. He rode alone as instructed, though he knew Kyle and Gareth followed at a distance, disobeying orders. Let them. If this was indeed a trap, they'd learn a valuable lesson about consequences. The moon rose full and silver, painting the snowfield in shades of bone. Aldric dismounted, his breath misting in the frigid air. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, wanting to emerge, but he suppressed the urge. The pain wasn't worth it anymore. Punctual, I appreciate that. She emerged from the rocks like a shadow given form. Seraph Blackthorn was nothing like he'd imagined. Tall and lean with a warrior's build, she wore blackened leather armor, scarred from 1,000 fights. Her dark hair was cropped short, practical. A wicked scar cut across her left eye, the eye itself clouded white and useless. But her right eye burned with cold intelligence. 20 mercenaries materialized behind her, forming a loose semicircle, all male, all clearly terrified of their captain. "Commander Ironwood." She didn't bow, didn't even incline her head. "You look worse than the rumors suggested, and you look like someone who enjoys making enemies." Aldric studied her with a warrior's appraisal. Scars on her knuckles, calluses on her sword hand, the slight favor of her right leg suggesting an old injury poorly healed. This was no pampered noble's daughter. "Your letter was bold, possibly suicidal. Honesty tends to be both." She moved closer, circling him like a predator evaluating prey. "Your nephews are a disaster. The eldest is addicted to bloodlust potions. The second is intelligent but physically weak, and he's bedding a stable boy, which your traditional council will use against him. The third drinks himself into oblivion every night and believes he's a bastard despite his legitimate birth. The youngest is 12 and hasn't even experienced his first shift. Tell me I'm wrong." Aldric's silence was answer enough. "You have 6 months to live," Seraph continued mercilessly. "Maybe less, given how the silver rot progresses. Without a clear successor, your united North will fracture into 7 warring packs within a year. The blood unification will mean nothing. All those deaths, all those widows, all that sacrifice, wasted. And you care about this because I don't." Her scarred face showed no emotion. "But I care about reclaiming my family's lands. My father was a traitor and a fool, but those territories are still Blackthorn by right. You seized them when you killed my brothers. I want them back, in exchange for training 4 boys who hate each other to become leaders." Aldric laughed, a harsh sound that turned into a cough. He tasted blood. "Why should I trust you not to poison them against me?" "Because I'm offering you something no one else can." She stopped circling, meeting his gaze directly. An outsider's perspective. Someone who isn't blinded by loyalty or tradition or fear of your legendary temper. "I'll turn your boys into warriors, strategists, survivors. I can't promise they'll be good kings, but I'll make damn sure they can survive what's coming." "And what is coming?" "You tell me. You're the one dying without a clear heir. Every ambitious lord and displaced noble is watching, waiting. The moment you're gone, they'll descend like vultures." She gestured to the frozen battlefield around them. "This place is a reminder of what happens when the North fractures. Do you want that as your legacy?" Aldric was quiet for a long moment, listening to the wind howl through the rocks. Finally he said, "One more condition. Someone in my household is working against me, poisoning my nephews' minds, undermining unity. You're an outsider. You'll see things I'm too close to notice. Find the traitor." Seraph's good eye narrowed. "That's espionage, not training. That's survival. Both yours and theirs." He pulled a small knife from his belt, cutting his palm. Blood welled, dark against the snow. "Blood oath, Blackthorn style. Swear you'll serve my house faithfully for 6 months, and I'll restore your lands and grant you a council seat." She hesitated only a moment before drawing her own blade. Their blood mixed, dripping onto the frozen ground. The ancient magic of the oath settled between them like chains forged from obligation and necessity. 6 months, she agreed, "and then I want what's mine, if we both survive that long." The journey back to Ironwood Keep took 3 days. Seraph rode at the front of the column, her mercenaries flanking her like a personal guard. Aldric watched her interact with his nephews, noting every detail. Kael challenged her immediately, demanding to know why his uncle had hired a crippled woman to train warriors. She'd responded by disarming him in 10 seconds and breaking his nose in 15. The boy had gained some respect after that, though his resentment simmered beneath the surface. Roderick approached her with scholar's caution, asking intelligent questions about military strategy and tactical theory. She'd answered with surprising depth, engaging his mind in ways that clearly intrigued him. Gareth stayed drunk and sullen, barely acknowledging her existence. Once, Aldric caught her studying the boy with an expression he couldn't quite read. Not pity, something closer to recognition. Marcus trailed behind everyone, quiet and watchful. The youngest nephew reminded Aldric painfully of himself at that age, uncertain, afraid of disappointing expectations, desperate to prove worth he wasn't sure he possessed. Ironwood Keep rose from the mountain like a clenched fist of stone and ice. It had been built 5 generations ago as a fortress, not a palace. Every wall was designed for defense, every tower positioned for maximum tactical advantage. Comfort had always been secondary to survival here. The household staff assembled in the courtyard as they arrived. Maris stood at the front, her lined face carefully neutral, but Aldric noticed how her eyes widened slightly when she saw Seraph. Recognition? Impossible. Maris had served his house for decades, long before the blood unification. "This is Seraph Blackthorn," Aldric announced to the assembled staff and warriors. "She will serve as war trainer for my nephews. Her word is my word. Her orders are to be obeyed as if they came from me directly. Anyone who has objections can voice them now or hold their tongue forever." Silence. But Aldric felt the undercurrents of fear and resentment. Blackthorn was still a cursed name in the north. "Good. Maris, prepare chambers in the east wing. Blackthorn, your men can quarter in the barracks. Training begins at dawn." That night, Aldric called his nephews to the war room. All 4 came, though with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Kael radiated angry pride, his broken nose bandaged. Roderick looked thoughtful. Gareth reeked of whiskey. Marcus stood small and silent. "You will train with Seraph Blackthorn for the next 6 months," Aldric said without preamble. "She will push you harder than you've ever been pushed. She will break you down and rebuild you. Some of you may not survive the process." "This is insane," Kael burst out. "You're trusting our futures to a Blackthorn? Have you forgotten what her family did?" "I forget nothing. Certainly not the 3 Blackthorn sons I personally killed." Aldric's voice went cold as winter stone. "But those boys were warriors, trained, dangerous. You 4 are soft, divided, weak. If I died tomorrow, you'd tear each other apart fighting over scraps of my kingdom. Seraph will change that, or you'll die trying." "Why her?" Roderick asked quietly. "Why not one of your own generals?" "Because my generals will coddle you. They remember you as children. They're bound by loyalty and tradition." Aldric met each nephew's eyes in turn. "Seraph Blackthorn owes me nothing but a blood oath. She has no reason to lie to you or soften hard truths. She'll tell you exactly how inadequate you are, and maybe, if you're lucky and work hard enough, she'll help you become something more." "And if we refuse?" Gareth slurred. "Then refuse. But understand that the moment I die, you'll be at each other's throats. History will remember you as the boys who destroyed everything their uncle built." Aldric turned back to his maps, dismissing them. "The choice is yours. Make it wisely." They filed out in tense silence. Only Marcus lingered. "Uncle?" The boy's voice was soft. "Are you really dying?" Aldric could have lied, should have perhaps, but the boy deserved truth. "Yes." "How long?" 6 months, maybe less." Marcus's young face crumpled, but he fought back tears. "Then I'll train. I'll work harder than anyone. I'll make you proud before... Come here, boy." Marcus approached hesitantly. Aldric rested his hand on the boy's shoulder, feeling how thin he was, how young. "You don't need to make me proud," Aldric said quietly. "You need to make yourself strong. Strong enough to survive what's coming. Strong enough to protect what matters. Can you do that?" "I'll try." "Then that's enough for now." Training began before dawn. Aldric watched from the battlements as Seraph put his nephews through their paces. She was merciless, pushing them past exhaustion into the territory where true character revealed itself. Cale, furious and prideful, tried to dominate through aggression. She used his rage against him, turning his strength into a liability until he learned to think before attacking. Roderick, brilliant but physically weak, stumbled through combat drills. But when she shifted the exercise to tactical planning, he shone. She recognized his gift and began building his confidence around it. Gareth arrived drunk to the first 3 sessions. The third time, she had him bound to a post and left in the freezing courtyard until he sobered up. When he finally emerged, shaking and miserable, she was waiting with a practice sword. "Your choice," she said simply. "Be a drunk and die forgotten, or be a warrior and die remembered. Either way, you're going to die. What matters is what you do with the time between." Something in her words reached him. The next day he arrived sober. Marcus struggled with everything. He was too small, too young, too inexperienced. But he never quit, never complained, just kept getting up, kept trying, kept pushing himself past every limit. One morning Seraph pulled the boy aside. Aldric was close enough to hear. "Why do you keep trying?" she asked. "You know you're outmatched, outclassed, years behind your cousins." "Because giving up means Uncle Aldric's death meant nothing," Marcus said simply. "He's spent his life protecting us. The least I can do is try to be worth it." Seraph was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "All right, let's work on your footwork. You're too slow, but we can fix that." 3 weeks into training, disaster struck. Finian, the stable boy who'd been bedding Roderick, collapsed during his chores. By the time they carried him to Aldric's chambers, the boy was convulsing, foam at his lips, eyes rolled back. "Poison," the healer confirmed grimly. "Silver-based, specifically designed to kill shifters slowly." "Will he live?" Roderick's voice shook. "Not unless we have the antidote, and I've never seen this particular compound before." Aldric studied the boy's symptoms with a warrior's clinical eye. The silver burns around his mouth, the way his muscles seized, the blackening veins spreading from his throat. He'd seen this before. "During the blood unification," he said slowly, "Cassian Blackthorn's forces used a poison like this, weapons coated with a compound that made even scratches lethal to shifters." All eyes turned to Seraph. She stepped forward, kneeling beside the dying boy. Her scarred face showed no emotion as she examined him. "It's not the same compound, but it's similar, based on the same principles." "You can cure him?" Roderick demanded. "Maybe. I'd need ingredients from the northern forests. Moonroot, silverbane, wolf's tongue. 3 hours' ride in good weather." "It's snowing," Cale pointed out. "Heavy. The forests will be deadly." "Then I'll go alone." Seraph stood. "I've navigated worse." "You're not going anywhere," Aldric said quietly. Every instinct screamed trap. Convenient that Blackthorn's lover was poisoned with a Blackthorn weapon. Convenient that only a Blackthorn could cure it. "You'll tell me what you need. I'll send my best riders. By the time they find the right plants, this boy will be dead." Seraph met his gaze steadily. "You don't trust me. I understand, but that boy doesn't have time for your suspicions. So decide now. Let me try to save him, or watch him die while you wonder if I'm the one who poisoned him in the first place." The room held its breath. "Kale," Aldric said finally. "Go with her. If she makes any move that seems suspicious, kill her." "With pleasure," Kale said coldly. They returned 4 hours later, Seraph half frozen and Kale looking shaken. Between them, they carried bags of the precious plants. Seraph's hands worked with practiced efficiency, grinding and mixing and brewing a compound that filled the room with acrid smoke. "Force this down his throat," she ordered, handing the cup to Roderick. "All of it. It'll taste like poison itself, but it should counteract the silver." They waited. Minutes stretched into hours. Finian's convulsions slowed. His breathing steadied. Color returned to his face. When his eyes finally opened, Roderick collapsed beside him, sobbing with relief. "How did you know?" Aldric asked Seraph quietly. "How to cure this specific poison?" "My father used it during the war," she said, her voice flat. "I watched him test it on prisoners, learned which plants could counteract it." She met his gaze. "You want to know if I poisoned him? I didn't. But I understand why you'd suspect me. My family's legacy is poison and betrayal." "Then why save him?" "Because I took a blood oath, and because—" She paused, something flickering across her scarred face. "Because I'm tired of being defined by my father's sins." That night, Maris came to Aldric's chambers after everyone else had retired. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice low. "About Seraph Blackthorn." "Speak." "She's my niece. My sister Elena was her mother. Elena died in childbirth, and Cassian Blackthorn raised Seraph alone, training her like the son he wanted instead of the daughter he had." Maris's hands twisted together. "I was exiled from Blackthorn lands when I tried to protect her from his worst cruelties. I've served your house for decades, hoping one day to help her. When I heard she'd written to you, I encouraged you to meet her." Aldric absorbed this carefully. "You've been lying to me for 40 years. I've been loyal to you for 40 years. But Seraph is blood. When I saw her suffering under Cassian's training, trying desperately to earn love from a man incapable of giving it," Maris's voice broke. "She deserves better than to carry his legacy. Please, my lord, give her a chance to be more than Blackthorn's daughter." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because someone did poison that boy, and someone will try to blame Seraph for it. You need to know she's not working against you. She's trying to escape her past, not repeat it." After Maris left, Aldric stood at his window, watching snow fall on the silent keep. Somewhere in this fortress, a traitor moved unseen, someone who wanted chaos, civil war, the destruction of everything he'd built. He coughed, tasting silver blood. Time was running out. 2 weeks later, the true threat revealed itself. Victor Ashford, Aldric's most trusted advisor for 20 years, called an emergency council session. Aldric arrived to find the circular chamber already filled with tension. "We must address the situation with the Blackthorn woman," Victor began smoothly. His polished voice carried the weight of reasoned concern. "The poisoning incident, her family history, the risk she represents." "She saved Finian's life," Roderick interrupted. "That hardly seems threatening." "She saved him from a poison only a Blackthorn would know how to create," Victor countered. "Convenient, wouldn't you say? She establishes herself as indispensable by solving a crisis she likely created." "You have proof of this?" Aldric asked coldly. "I have circumstantial evidence. Her family's history, the timing, the opportunity." Victor spread documents across the table. "More concerning is this, financial records showing payments from the Blackthorn estate to several members of this very council, dated within the last 3 months. The chamber erupted. Accusations flew. Council members pointed fingers at each other. Aldric let it play out, watching Victor carefully. The advisor was too calm, too prepared. This wasn't discovery, it was orchestration. "Furthermore," Victor continued when the noise died down, "I've uncovered evidence that Commander Ironwood's illness is advancing faster than disclosed. The silver rot has progressed to dangerous levels. For the safety of the realm, I call for immediate succession. We must choose an heir now before it's too late." "The commander still rules," Lady Meredith Hale said sharply. The oldest council member, she'd served 3 Alpha Kings and survived more political storms than anyone alive. "He is fit to make this decision when he's ready." "Is he?" Victor gestured to Aldric. Look at him. He can barely stand without pain. How long before he can't shift at all? How long before enemies smell weakness and attack? Aldric forced himself to his feet, ignoring the agony that lanced through his body. You presume much, Ashford. I presume to protect this kingdom you've built. Victor's mask of concern never slipped. Choose your heir today, or I'll call for a vote to remove you from regency. The threat hung in the air like a drawn blade. Before Aldric could respond, the chamber doors burst open. Seraph strode in, Roderick at her side, both carrying armfuls of documents. Forgive the interruption, Seraph said, her voice cutting through the tension. But there's something the council should see before voting. She spread papers across the table. Ledgers, financial records, letters. 3 weeks ago, Commander Ironwood asked me to find who was working against him, Seraph said. I found several someones, including Advisor Ashford's private physician, who's been synthesizing bloodlust potions from corrupted shifter essence, the same potions Cale has been taking. Cale's face went white. Lies, Victor said smoothly. Blackthorn forgeries. These are your own estate's records, Roderick interrupted, his scholar's precision cutting through the denial. I verified the handwriting, cross-referenced the accounts. You've been paying mercenaries, bribing council members, and most damningly, you've been purchasing ingredients for silver rot poison. The chamber went silent. Silver rot is a natural disease, Victor said carefully. It is, Aldric agreed, stepping closer to his advisor. But it can be accelerated, induced even in someone already weakened. Tell me, Victor, how long have you been poisoning me? This is absurd. I've served you loyally for 20 years. You've positioned yourself for 20 years. Seraph pulled out a final document. This letter is from Duke Cassian Blackthorn to you, dated 3 years ago. He thanks you for continued cooperation in matters of mutual interest. What interests would those be? Victor's composure finally cracked. His hand moved toward his belt, toward the knife hidden there. He didn't make it 2 inches before Seraph's blade was at his throat. I'd stay very still if I were you, she advised. Guards moved in, disarming Victor and binding his hands. The advisor's mask fell away entirely, revealing cold calculation beneath. You think this changes anything? He sneered at Aldric. You're still dying. Your nephews are still unprepared. This kingdom will still fracture the moment you're gone. I just wanted to profit from the inevitable. Take him to the cells, Aldric ordered. He'll stand trial for treason. As the guards dragged Victor away, Lady Meredith stood slowly. This council owes Commander Ironwood an apology, she said formally. And we owe Seraph Blackthorn our thanks. Her investigation uncovered a conspiracy that could have destroyed us all. The conspiracy isn't over, Seraph said quietly. Victor mentioned payments to council members. Someone in this room is compromised. All eyes swept the chamber, suspicion thick as smoke. Then we have work to do, Aldric said. But first, we address the matter of succession. I have 6 months to live. Less, now that we know Victor was accelerating my disease. Lady Meredith, I request 3 months to prepare my nephews. After that, I'll name my heir. 3 months, Meredith agreed. But Commander, if you haven't chosen by then, this council will choose for you. Those are my terms. Acceptable. The council adjourned in tense silence. Aldric made it to his chambers before his legs gave out. Seraph caught him, her strength surprising. You're getting worse, she observed. Victor's poison worked faster than natural progression. Aldric let her help him to a chair. 3 months. Can you make them ready in 3 months? I can make them competent, ready for what's coming? She shook her head. That depends on what's coming. A knock at the door. Cale entered, his face a mask of shame. I need to confess something, he said quietly. The bloodlust potions. I've been taking them for 6 months. I was afraid I wasn't strong enough, wasn't worthy of succession. You weren't, Aldric said bluntly. But addiction doesn't make you stronger. It makes you dependent. A king can't rule while enslaved to anything. I know, and I want to stop. But the withdrawal. Cale's hands shook. They say it can kill you. Then we'll make sure it doesn't. Seraph moved toward the door. I've supervised 3 warriors through bloodlust withdrawal. It's not pleasant, but you'll survive if you're strong enough. How long? 6 weeks of hell, then months of rebuilding strength. She paused. But you'll come out of it clean, yourself again, if that's what you want. Kael met his uncle's eyes. I want to be worthy, actually worthy, not just pretending. Then suffer and earn it, Aldric said, just like the rest of us. After Kael left to begin his ordeal, Aldric and Seraph sat in silence. There's something you should know, she said finally, about your nephew Gareth. She laid out documents, birth records, blood ritual results, genetic lineage traced through ancient pack magic. He's not a bastard, she said quietly. His mother was legitimately married, but the man who raised him wasn't his biological father. Aldric's world tilted. Then who? You. You're his father, Aldric. Direct bloodline. Your brother Thomas claimed him to avoid scandal when Elena became pregnant before the marriage was formalized, but the blood doesn't lie. Gareth is your son. The room spun. Aldric thought of Thomas, his gentle brother, the one who'd sided with Cassian's rebellion out of misguided idealism, the brother he'd killed personally, running him through with a sword while rain poured and wolves howled. I killed his father, Aldric whispered, the man who raised him, and I never knew I was raising my own son. Thomas knew. Elena knew. They kept the secret to protect the boy from your enemies. If anyone had known you had a biological heir during the blood unification. Seraph didn't finish. They both knew what would have happened. Does Gareth know? Not yet. But he should. He spent 15 years thinking he's illegitimate, unwanted. That's why he drinks. Why he believes he doesn't belong. Aldric stood, pacing to the window. Below, Gareth practiced sword forms alone in the courtyard, his movements sloppy with alcohol but still showing traces of natural talent. Tell him, Seraph advised. Give him the truth. It might be the anchor he needs. Or it might break him completely. Learning I'm his father and his father's murderer in the same breath. Then that's the risk you take. But he deserves to know. The next night, Aldric called Gareth to his study. The boy came reeking of whiskey, but managing to stand straight. Sit, Aldric commanded. Gareth remained standing. If you're going to lecture me about drinking, I'm going to tell you about your father. Aldric pushed the documents across his desk. Thomas Ironwood was a good man. He raised you with love and care. But he wasn't your biological father. The boy's face went through a dozen emotions. I knew it. Everyone said I was a bastard, and they were right. Read the documents, all of them. Silence fell as Gareth read. Aldric watched understanding dawn, then horror, then something more complex. You're my father, Gareth said slowly. My actual father. And you killed Thomas, the man who raised me, who loved me when my real father couldn't even be bothered to claim me. I didn't know, Aldric said quietly. Thomas and Elena kept the secret to protect you. If my enemies had known I had a biological son during the war, they would have used you against me, killed you to hurt me. Thomas claimed you as his own to keep you safe, and then you killed him anyway. I killed him because he betrayed this kingdom, because he sided with Cassian Blackthorn's rebellion. I gave him every chance to surrender. He chose to fight. Aldric met his son's eyes. I've lived with that choice for 15 years. It haunts me every day. But I'd make it again, because the alternative was civil war that would have killed thousands. Gareth's hands shook. You expect me to just accept this? To call you father and forget that you murdered the man who actually raised me? I expect nothing. But you deserve the truth. You're not a bastard. You're my blood, direct lineage. You have as much right to succession as any of your cousins. More because you carry Ironwood blood from the main line. I don't want your blood. I don't want your throne. Gareth's voice cracked. I want Thomas back. I want to grow up knowing my real father actually cared instead of being some dirty secret hidden away. I care now. Now? Now? Gareth laughed bitterly. You're dying and suddenly you want to be a father? That's not care, that's guilt. You're right. It is guilt. It's also truth. And it's the only thing I can give you. Aldric stood, moving closer. I can't undo 15 years, can't bring Thomas back, can't erase the blood on my hands, but I can give you something he would have wanted, knowledge of who you really are. You belong here, Gareth. You always have. The boy's anger crumbled into something rawer. Tears streaked his face. He loved me, Thomas. Even knowing I wasn't his blood, he loved me. I know. That's more than you've ever given. I know that too. Aldric's voice was rough with emotion he rarely showed, and I can't compete with his memory. But I can try to give you what time I have left, if you'll let me. Gareth stood silent for a long moment, then he turned and left without another word. Aldric sank into his chair, feeling every one of his 62 years. Through the window, he watched his son disappear into the fortress's shadows. Time was running out, and there was still so much to do. 3 months compressed into 3 weeks. The deadline Lady Meredith had granted felt like a noose tightening around Aldric's throat. Every morning brought fresh blood on his pillow. Every shift into wolf form left him weaker than before. The silver rot was winning, but his nephews were changing. Aldric watched from the battlements as dawn broke over the training yard. Below, Kael led a squad through combat drills. The boy moved differently now, controlled, precise, thinking before striking. 6 weeks clean from bloodlust potions had aged him, carved away the arrogant youth, and left something harder beneath. He still had moments of rage, still struggled with the hollow ache where artificial strength had lived. But he was fighting through it. He's getting better, Seraph said, appearing at Aldric's side like smoke. She moved with a warrior's silence, always armed, always alert. The rising sun caught the scar across her ruined eye, turning it silver. Still relies too much on brute force, but he's learning patience. Will he be ready? For what? Ruling a kingdom? She shook her head. No one's ever ready for that. But he might survive the first year without getting himself killed. That's the best we can hope for. In the yard below, Roderick stood at a sand table, moving wooden pieces while explaining strategy to a group of warriors twice his age. The men listened with grudging respect. The scholarly nephew had found his strength, not in blade work, but in the kind of tactical brilliance that won wars before they started. And him? Aldric asked. Roderick will make a fine advisor, maybe even a ruler, if he can overcome his physical limitations. Seraph's voice softened slightly. His relationship with Finian has become public knowledge. Some of the older warriors grumble about it, but the younger ones don't care. Times are changing. Not fast enough for some, never fast enough for those who suffer under tradition's weight. She watched Roderick with something that might have been approval. He announced it himself, stood before the entire garrison, and claimed Finian as his mate. Said any man who had a problem with it could challenge him directly. And no one did. Partly because he's your nephew. Partly because the boy's proven himself smart enough that even the traditionalists respect his mind. Seraph paused. And partly because I let it be known I'd break the spine of anyone who touched him. Aldric glanced at her. You've grown protective of them. They've earned it. Even Gareth. Her gaze shifted to the far corner of the yard, where Aldric's biological son practiced alone. He's been sober for 2 weeks, longest stretch since I arrived. Gareth moved through sword forms with mechanical precision. Since learning the truth about his parentage, the boy had thrown himself into training with obsessive focus. He spoke to no one, avoided Aldric entirely. But he worked harder than any of them, pushing himself until he collapsed from exhaustion. He hates me, Aldric said quietly. He's confused, angry, grieving for the father he lost and the one he never knew he had. Seraph's scarred face was unreadable. Give him time. I don't have time. They stood in silence, watching the sun climb higher. Below, Marcus appeared in the yard, younger than the others but determined. The boy had finally experienced his first shift last week, a late bloomer, as they'd feared, but his wolf form had been massive, silver-furred and powerful, larger than even Kael's. The youngest one surprises me, Seraph admitted. I thought he'd break under the pressure. Instead, he's found strength I didn't expect. He reminds me of his father, Aldric said. My youngest brother, Sean, gentle by nature but fierce when protecting what he loved. His voice roughened. I killed him last. After Thomas and Matthias, I wanted to give him every chance to surrender. But he charged me anyway, screaming that I'd murdered his brothers. I can still hear his voice when I close my eyes." Seraph was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You carry your dead like stones. All those you've killed, all those deaths you deem necessary. How do you bear it?" "I don't. I just keep moving forward because stopping means drowning." Aldric turned to face her directly. "You understand that, don't you? The weight of choices that haunt you." "I understand." Her hand moved unconsciously to the scar across her eye. "My father gave me this, called it a lesson about the price of weakness. I was 16 and crying over a bird I'd failed to save. He said blackthorns don't weep for the weak." "Your father was a monster." "Yes, and I spent my whole life trying to prove I wasn't him, trying to earn love from a man incapable of giving it." She met Aldric's gaze. "I see that same desperate hunger in your nephews, boys trying to earn approval from ghosts and distant uncles. It's familiar territory. Is that why you're really here? To save them from becoming what you were?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'm trying to save myself by proxy." She smiled without humor. "Either way, we have 8 weeks left. Not enough time to fix everything that's broken in them, but enough to make them dangerous. That's something." A commotion from the gates drew their attention. Riders approaching, moving fast. Aldric's tactical mind catalogued details automatically. 20 horsemen, no banners, formation too precise for merchants. "Trouble," Seraph said, her hand moving to her sword. They descended from the battlements quickly. By the time they reached the courtyard, the riders had stopped just outside bow range. Aldric recognized their armor immediately. Black steel polished to a mirror shine. Blackthorn elite. "Why would your father's soldiers come now?" Aldric demanded. "Cassian's been dead for 2 years. Seraph's scarred face had gone pale. "Because he always had contingencies, plans within plans. I thought they died with him." A single rider moved forward, removing his helmet. Even from a distance, Aldric could see the family resemblance to Seraph, same sharp features, same cold eyes. But where she was scarred and weathered, this man was pristine, polished, deadly. "Seraph Blackthorn!" The man's voice carried across the walls, enhanced by shifter strength. "Your father's legacy calls. Join us or be counted among our enemies." Seraph stepped to the edge of the battlement, making herself visible. Around them, Aldric's warriors tensed. Kyle's hand moved to his sword. Roderick had appeared with Finian, both armed. Even Gareth had emerged from his solitary practice, watching with wary eyes. "Thaddeus," Seraph called back, "my father is dead. His wars died with him." "His vision lives," Thaddeus Blackthorn shouted. "You were sent to weaken Ironwood from within. Have you completed your mission?" Every warrior on the battlements turned to stare at Seraph. Aldric felt the shift in atmosphere, suspicion, betrayal, rage all mixing like poison. Kyle drew his blade. Marcus took a step back. Even Roderick's scholarly calm cracked. "Answer carefully," Aldric said quietly, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "Your next words determine whether we face this threat together or whether I execute you where you stand." Seraph never took her eyes off her uncle. When she spoke, her voice rang clear and cold. "I was sent to destroy. I chose to build instead." She raised her voice, ensuring every Ironwood warrior heard. "Cassian Blackthorn's legacy ends here. Tell your forces. Tell your allies. The North belongs to Ironwood, and I stand with them." Thaddeus's laughter was ugly. "Then you die with them, traitor. You were always weak, Seraph. Our father saw it, tried to beat it out of you, but you're still just a broken little girl playing at war." "I'm the woman who survived your father's cruelty and came out stronger." Seraph's hand gripped the stone parapet hard enough to make her knuckles white. "Ride back to whatever hole spawned you. Tell the others this kingdom is defended." "We'll see." Thaddeus wheeled his horse, galloping back to his forces. Orders were shouted. The riders began spreading out, surrounding the fortress in a loose perimeter. Aldric let the silence stretch for 3 heartbeats. Then he turned to his warriors. "Seraph Blackthorn has proven her loyalty through blood and oath. Any man who questions that can leave now or face me directly." His alpha command rolled through the courtyard like thunder. "The Blackthorns are coming. We will meet them as united forces or not at all. Choose." No one moved. Kyle slowly sheathed his blade. "How many?" Aldric asked Seraph. "Thaddeus wouldn't come with just 20 riders. He's probing our defenses. The main force," she calculated quickly. "If Father's contingency plans are fully active, 500, maybe more. Elite soldiers hidden in training for 40 years. 500 against our 300. Roderick had moved to the war table in the Great Hall, his mind already working. "We can't win a direct engagement." "Then we don't fight direct." Gareth spoke for the first time in days. He moved to the table, studying the maps with hungry eyes. "We have terrain advantage. Force them into kill zones. The canyon," Aldric said, seeing it, "where we won the blood unification. It's the only approach that allows massed forces." "We lure them in," Seraph said, her tactical mind aligning with Aldric's. "Make them think they're winning, then collapse the canyon walls." "How?" Kyle demanded. "We don't have siege weapons, don't have—" He trailed off as Seraph and Aldric exchanged looks. "There's a technique," Seraph said slowly. "Forbidden, because it's dangerous even to the user. Pack magic, blood rituals. Multiple shifters working together can channel enough raw power to shatter stone. It requires perfect timing," Aldric added, "and it will kill whoever channels the final surge. The power backlash is too much for any single shifter to survive." The room went silent. "You're talking about a suicide mission," Roderick said quietly. "I'm talking about survival," Aldric corrected. 500 Blackthorn elites will overrun us in direct combat. But funnel them into a canyon, bring the mountain down on their heads, and we cut their numbers in half before the real fight even begins. "Who leads the bait force?" Marcus asked, his young voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "I will," Kyle said immediately. "My unit. We've trained for mobile fighting." "You'll need support," Gareth said, stepping closer to the map. "Someone to cover the retreat. I'll take the rear guard." Aldric looked at his 2 oldest nephews, the one he'd raised, the one he'd unknowingly fathered, both volunteering for the most dangerous position. Something tight in his chest loosened slightly. "Roderick coordinates from here," he decided. "You have the mind for timing. Marcus stays with the reserve forces to protect the keep if they breach the walls." The youngest nephew nodded, trying to hide his relief. He wasn't ready for frontline combat, and everyone knew it. "And you?" Seraph asked Aldric. He wanted to say he'd lead the ritual, that he'd be the one to channel the final lethal surge. But looking at Seraph's scarred face, he knew she'd already decided. "We'll see where we're needed most," he said instead. "Prepare everything. We have until nightfall." As the others dispersed to their tasks, Seraph remained. "You were going to volunteer to channel the ritual," she said. "Die bringing down the mountain. It would be a good death, better than wasting away from silver rot. And leave your nephews without guidance, without someone who understands the weight of ruling?" She shook her head. "No. If someone dies in that canyon, it won't be you. You plan to sacrifice yourself. I plan to pay my family's debts. Cassian Blackthorn's legacy has poisoned this land for 2 generations. Let it end with me." Her ruined eye caught the light. "Besides, I have no one waiting for me. No mate, no children, no legacy beyond violence." "You have them." Aldric gestured toward where his nephews worked. "You've become more than their trainer. They look to you like a mother. Even Kyle, who hated you at first." "I'm no one's mother. Neither was Liana mine." The name slipped out before he could stop it. Aldric's chest tightened. He rarely spoke of his mate, dead these past 5 years. But she shaped me anyway, taught me there was more to strength than winning battles. She was my balance, my reason for building instead of just destroying. Seraph's expression softened. "How did she die?" "Hunting accident. A boar gored her before I could reach her. I carried her body back to the keep, howling my grief to the sky." His voice roughened. "We were fated mates, soul-bonded. When she died, part of me died with her. I haven't been whole since." "Is that why you never took another mate?" "Soul bonds don't replace. Once you've felt that connection, that perfect understanding, anything else feels like a pale shadow." He met her eyes. "I spent 5 years half alive, only stayed breathing because the kingdom needed me, because my nephews needed someone." Seraph was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, My father told me soul bonds were weakness, that true strength meant needing no one. Your father was wrong about many things. Yes, he was. She moved closer, her scarred face tilted up to study his. I've never felt it. That bond everyone speaks of, I thought maybe I was broken, incapable of it. You're not broken, just waiting for the right moment. Something passed between them then. Not the immediate, overwhelming pull of a soul bond, but something subtler. Recognition, understanding. Two scarred warriors who'd survived through strength and sacrifice, finding unexpected kinship. If I survive the canyon, Seraph said quietly, maybe I'll try to be more than just a weapon. And if I survive watching you fight, maybe I'll tell you about the woman who taught me how to be more than a killer. They stood close enough to feel each other's warmth in the cold stone hall, close enough that Aldric could smell the winter pine scent that always clung to Seraph's armor. For just a moment, he let himself imagine what it would be like to have another chance at companionship. Not love. He'd buried that with Liana. But partnership. Understanding. Then the moment passed. Battle called. Death waited. 12 hours, Seraph said, stepping back. Better make them count. The sun set in shades of blood and gold. Aldric gathered his nephews in the great hall one final time before battle. Whatever happens tomorrow, he began, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years' authority. Know this, you've become more than I dared hope. Cale, you've found strength and discipline rather than desperation. Roderick, you've proven intelligence can be as deadly as any blade. Marcus, you've shown that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the will to act despite it. His eyes found Gareth last. And you've learned that blood isn't what defines us. Actions do. Choices do. Gareth met his gaze for the first time since learning the truth. I'm still angry at you. Good. Hold that anger. Let it fuel you tomorrow. Aldric moved closer to his son. But know this, Thomas raised you well. He made you strong and honorable. I may be your father by blood, but he was your father in every way that mattered. Honor his memory by surviving what's coming. Gareth's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. Kyle stepped forward. Uncle, if I don't survive tomorrow, you will. If I don't, Kyle continued firmly, I need you to know, the bloodlust nearly destroyed me. You and Seraph saved me. For that I'll always be grateful. Save your gratitude. Earn your redemption by living long enough to help rebuild what we're about to break. Roderick was next, Finian at his side. I've calculated the timing for the canyon collapse. It's precise to within 30 seconds. If we miss the window, We won't, Aldric said. I trust your mind, nephew. Trust it yourself. Finally, Marcus. The boy looked impossibly young, but his eyes held old understanding. I had another vision. Oracle touched, like they say my bloodline carries. Aldric tensed. What did you see? Snow, blood. A silver wolf standing over broken stone. Marcus's voice was distant, and a voice saying, The Cursed One carries the cure. What does that mean? I don't know, but I think it's important. Seraph had been listening from the shadows. Now she emerged, her expression thoughtful. Oracle visions are never literal, but they're never wrong either. Then we'll find out what it means when the time comes. Aldric looked at each nephew in turn. Get some rest. Tomorrow we fight for everything our fathers died to build. They dispersed slowly, all except Gareth, who lingered. I won't call you father, he said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't need the title, just survive. But I will fight for you tomorrow, for this kingdom, for... Gareth swallowed hard. For the man Thomas wanted me to be. It was as close to reconciliation as they'd come. Aldric accepted it with a nod. Alone with Seraph again, he moved to the window. Below, warriors prepared for battle. Weapons were sharpened, armor repaired, prayers whispered to old gods and new. I haven't shifted in a week, Aldric admitted. The pain's too much, the rot's too advanced. Can you still do it, if you need to? One more time, maybe. And it might kill me. He turned to face her. But better to die as a wolf than waste away as a man. There are worse deaths than battle. I've seen most of them. Dealt most of them. His scarred hand found hers. If I fall tomorrow, you won't. If I do, promise me something. Keep them together. Don't let them fracture into the same tribal warfare that nearly destroyed this land. Make them better than we were. Seraph's fingers tightened around his. I promise, but you'll be there to see it yourself, you stubborn old wolf. I'm 62, not that old. Ancient by warrior standards, practically fossilized. He surprised himself by laughing. Insolent whelp. Cranky elder. They stood like that. Hands joined, sharing warmth in the cold stone fortress. Not mates, not lovers, but something deeper than alliance, something that tasted like hope. Dawn came too quickly. The Blackthorn forces had assembled during the night, exactly as predicted. 500 strong, maybe more. They moved with military precision, a dark tide ready to crash against ironwood walls. Kael's bait force rode out first. 60 warriors, fast and mobile. They engaged the Blackthorn vanguard with hit-and-run tactics, making them angry, making them chase. Aldric watched from the battlements as Gareth's rear guard covered the retreat. His son fought like a demon, buying precious seconds for Kael's forces to fall back toward the canyon. It's working, Roderick said from his position at the war table, watching movements through far seers. They're following, getting angry, committing more forces. Seraph stood ready at the canyon's edge with 20 of their best earth magic practitioners, shifters who could manipulate stone and soil, guided by ancient pack rituals. They'd spent the night preparing the working, inscribing runes in blood, chanting the old words. How long? Aldric asked, already knowing the answer. Kael needs 3 more minutes to clear the kill zone. Then we trigger. Roderick's hands shook slightly as he moved pieces on the sand table. Finian's unit is in position to extract them. Marcus is holding reserve. Everything's ready. Everything except the sacrifice. Someone had to channel the final surge, and that someone wouldn't survive the backlash. Aldric began moving toward the stairs. Where are you going? Roderick demanded. To do what needs doing. Uncle, no, you're too weak. The rot makes me the perfect choice. Aldric kept walking. I'm dead anyway. Might as well make it count. He made it halfway across the courtyard before Seraph intercepted him. Not you, she said flatly. It has to be someone, but not you. Her scarred face was set in stubborn lines. I told you, if anyone dies in that canyon, it's me. Seraph. I'm faster, stronger, more expendable. She gripped his shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. You have to live long enough to see them crowned, to guide them through the first months, to ensure what we're fighting for actually survives. And what about you? What about your life? My life has been borrowed time since my father beat me half to death for showing mercy. Her voice was fierce. Let me spend it on something that matters, on people who've become something close to family. Aldric wanted to argue, wanted to pull rank, give orders, force her to stand down. But looking into her ruined eye, seeing the determination there, he knew she'd already made her choice, just as he'd made his 40 years ago when he'd killed his brothers for the greater good. There's a chance you'll survive, he said roughly. If the working is perfect, if the timing's exact, a small chance. I'll take it. She smiled, scars pulling tight. And if I don't, remember me as more than Cassian Blackthorn's daughter. Remember me as the woman who helped save your kingdom. I'll remember you as the warrior who taught my nephews to be better than I was. Something passed between them then, not a soul bond. Aldric had felt that once, would recognize its pull. But something precious nonetheless. Understanding, respect. The beginning of something that might have grown into affection, given time. Time they didn't have. Go, Seraph said gently. Watch from the walls. Bear witness. Aldric climbed back to the battlements, each step an act of will. Below, he watched Seraph join the ritual circle, watched her draw her blade and cut her palm, letting blood flow onto ancient stones. Kael's force burst from the canyon mouth, horses lathered, warriors bleeding but alive. Behind them came the Blackthorn army pouring into the narrow passage like water through a funnel. Now! Roderick screamed. Trigger it now! Seraph and her circle began to chant. Their voices rose in harmony, old words in older languages. Pack magic surged, visible as silver light that crawled up the canyon walls. Thaddeus Blackthorn realized the trap too late. He screamed orders to retreat, but momentum carried his forces deeper. The mountain groaned. Stone cracked with sounds like thunder. Seraph's voice rose above the others, channeling more power than any single shifter should hold. "The Cursed One carries the cure," Marcus whispered beside Aldric, his young face gone pale. "The vision. Uncle, what if—" The canyon walls collapsed inward. Tons of stone and ice came crashing down, swallowing the Blackthorn forces in an avalanche of destruction. Screams cut off mid-cry. The earth itself shook, and Seraph stood at the epicenter, arms raised, channeling forces that should have torn her apart. The light reached blinding intensity. Aldric couldn't look away, couldn't blink, couldn't breathe. Then it stopped. Silence fell like snow. Dust hung in the air, turning sunlight into diffuse gold. Where 500 Blackthorn warriors had stood, now there was only broken stone and the occasional moan of survivors trapped beneath rubble. And in the center of it all, Seraph collapsed. Aldric was running before conscious thought caught up. His body protested, silver rot making every step agony, but he pushed through. Down the stairs, across the courtyard, into the canyon's mouth. He found her in a crater of shattered stone. Her armor was cracked, blood seeping from a dozen wounds. But she was breathing. "Told you," she whispered as he knelt beside her. "Told you I'd survive. You reckless, magnificent fool." His hands shook as he checked her injuries. Broken ribs, internal bleeding, burns from magical backlash. "Don't move, the healers. Did we win?" "Look around." She managed to turn her head. The canyon was a tomb. Broken Blackthorn banners lay scattered among the rubble. Of the 500 who'd entered, maybe 50 had made it back out. The rest were buried or crushed. "We won," Aldric confirmed. "You won." "Good." Her hand found his. Then it was worth it. The healers worked on Seraph for 3 days. Her injuries were catastrophic. Broken bones, ruptured organs, magical burnout that left her unable to even sense pack bonds for weeks. But she lived. Aldric visited her each day, watching her slowly heal. They spoke little. Words felt inadequate after what had passed between them. On the 4th day, she was strong enough to sit up. "Tell me what happened to the survivors." Most surrendered. A few fled. Thaddeus Blackthorn was found alive in the rubble. Aldric's voice was flat. "He's been tried and executed for treason." "The army?" "Disbanded. The soldiers have been offered amnesty if they swear loyalty to Ironwood. Most have accepted." He paused. "It's over, Seraph. The Blackthorn threat is ended. My father's legacy, finally buried." She touched the bandages covering her ribs. "It cost enough." "Too much." "No." She met his eyes with her one good one. "Just enough. I'm alive. Your nephews are alive. The kingdom stands. That's worth any price." 2 weeks later, Lady Meredith Hale called the council to order. "The deadline has passed," she announced. "Commander Ironwood, have you chosen your heir?" Aldric stood before the assembled council, his nephews arrayed behind him. All 4 had survived the battle. All 4 had proven themselves in different ways. "I have," he said clearly. "But first, I want to acknowledge what we've learned. A single strong ruler prevented the blood unification's chaos, but a single dying ruler nearly allowed new chaos to take root." He gestured to his nephews. "I name all 4 as my heirs. A council of regents, ruling together until Marcus comes of age at 21. Then he will rule as sole Alpha King, guided by his brothers." Shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. "This is unprecedented," Elder Matthias protested. "So was the blood unification. So was Victor's betrayal. So was hiring a Blackthorn to save us." Aldric's voice carried absolute authority. "My decision stands. 4 minds prevent the mistakes of 1. 4 perspectives balance tradition with change. This is my will." "And the 5th seat?" Lady Meredith asked shrewdly, looking at Seraph. "You promised her a council position." "Seraph Blackthorn has earned more than a seat." Aldric turned to her. She stood now, still bandaged but healing. "I name her Lord Commander of all armies, advisor to the Regency Council, and guardian of my legacy." Seraph bowed her head in acceptance. The council voted, 4 in favor, 3 opposed. It passed. That night, Aldric found Seraph in what had been Lyanna's garden. His mate had loved this place, had made it bloom even in winter. It had died with her, choked by grief and neglect. But now, impossibly, something green pushed through the snow. Moonflowers, Seraph said softly. They say they only bloom when hope returns to a place. Lyanna planted these. She said they were soul-bonded to the land itself, that they'd know when true peace came. Aldric knelt, touching the fragile green shoots. I haven't seen them grow in 5 years. Maybe the land senses change coming. New growth, new possibilities. He stood facing her in the moonlight. I need to tell you something about mates and bonds in the future. Aldric! Let me finish. He took a careful breath. Lyanna was my soulmate. That bond was sacred, irreplaceable. When she died, I thought I'd never feel connection again, never want to. I understand, you don't have to, but these past months, he continued softly, I felt something I didn't expect. Not a soul bond. I'll never have that again. But something almost as rare. Partnership, understanding, the kind of companionship that comes from shared scars and mutual respect. Seraph's ruined eye glistened. I've never had anyone look at me as anything but a weapon, or a disappointment, or a threat. Then let me be the first to see you as something more. Aldric offered his hand. I'm dying, Seraph. We both know it. But whatever time I have left, I'd like to spend it knowing I'm not alone, that someone understands the weight I carry. I'm damaged goods, scarred, broken. So am I. Maybe that's why we fit. She took his hand. Their fingers interlaced, calloused palms pressed together. It wasn't the lightning strike of a fated bond. But it was warm, real. Enough. I'll stay, she whispered. As long as you need me. I'll always need you. They stood together in the winter garden, watching moonflowers begin to bloom under starlight. And for the first time in 5 years, Aldric felt something that wasn't quite love, but was close enough to matter. Hope. Winter deepened its grip on the northern reaches. 6 weeks had passed since the canyon battle, and the land slowly healed from war's wounds. Blackthorn survivors who'd sworn loyalty to Ironwood integrated into the pack structure with surprising ease. Turned out soldiers cared more about strong leadership than old grudges. But Aldric Ironwood was dying faster than anyone had predicted. The silver rot had accelerated after he'd made one final shift during the battle's aftermath. A moment of weakness when adrenaline and desperation had overcome wisdom. His wolf form had been magnificent for those brief minutes, silver-furred and massive, the alpha king in his prime. Then the transformation back had nearly killed him. Now he couldn't shift at all. The disease had progressed past the point of no return. 3 weeks, the healer said quietly, checking Aldric's pulse in the pre-dawn darkness. Maybe a month if you rest completely, but my lord, you need to prepare. I know what I need to do. Aldric's voice was rough, worn down by pain and blood-flecked coughing. Leave me. The healer bowed and departed. Alone in his chambers, Aldric stood at the window watching his nephews train in the yard below. They moved with new confidence now, their individual strengths complementing each other in ways he'd hoped but never dared expect. Kyle led combat drills with patience he'd learned through suffering. 8 weeks clean from bloodlust potions, and the boy had discovered his own strength was enough, more than enough. Roderick coordinated supply lines and defensive positions with Finian at his side, their partnership now openly acknowledged. Some of the older warriors still grumbled, but the younger generation had embraced change. Progress moved like glaciers, slow but unstoppable. Gareth worked with the engineers, designing new fortifications. His talent for infrastructure had surprised everyone, including himself. The angry drunk had become a focused builder, channeling his pain into creation rather than destruction. And Marcus, the youngest, continued to surprise them all. His late bloomer shift had revealed not just size but power. At 13 now, he already showed signs of becoming the strongest alpha in generations. His oracle visions came more frequently, guiding decisions with uncanny accuracy. You're watching them again. Aldric didn't turn. He'd learned to recognize Seraph's approach even without hearing her footsteps. They've grown. They had good teachers. She moved to stand beside him, her scarred face softened by morning light. Her injuries from the ritual had healed, but she'd never fully recover her magical sensitivity. The price of channeling forces meant for 20 shifters through a single body. "You're limping," Aldric observed. "Old wound acting up in the cold, I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar, and you're a stubborn fool who refuses to rest even when his body's shutting down." She touched his arm gently. "Come, sit. The world won't end if you take an hour for yourself." He let her guide him to a chair by the fire. These small intimacies had become natural over the past weeks. Not romance. Neither of them were built for courtship and flowers, but partnership, companionship, the quiet comfort of two scarred warriors who understood each other's demons. "I need to tell you something," Aldric said once they'd settled, "about what comes after." "Don't. Listen." He caught her hand, his grip weaker than he'd like. "When I'm gone, Victor's old supporters will try to exploit the power vacuum. They'll test the Regency, look for cracks. The boys will need someone who can see those threats coming. They'll have each other. They'll have each other's blind spots. Kael sees threats everywhere. Roderick sees opportunities. Gareth sees structures. Marcus sees futures. But none of them see the political games the way you do." His thumb traced her scarred knuckles. "Promise me you'll stay. Not just as Lord Commander, as family." Seraph's single good eye gleamed with unshed tears. "I'm not family. I'm the daughter of their enemy. You're the woman who saved them, who trained them, who nearly died protecting what we built." Aldric's voice roughened. "Blood doesn't make family, choice does, and they've chosen you just as you've chosen them." "I'll stay," she whispered, "as long as they need me. They'll always need you, just like I—" He broke off, coughing. Blood speckled his hand. Seraph was on her feet immediately, calling for the healer, but Aldric waved her off. "It's just time catching up. Let it come." He settled back in the chair, exhausted. "Tell me something. Do you regret it? Turning your back on Cassian's legacy? You could have ruled Blackthorn territories, had your own pack. Instead, you're here, nursing a dying old wolf." "I'm exactly where I want to be." She knelt beside his chair, taking both his hands in hers. "My father's legacy was poison. Yours is hope. I'd rather build hope than rule ashes." They sat in silence as the sun climbed higher. Outside, the training yard filled with activity. Life continued its relentless forward march. A knock at the door broke the moment. Maris entered, her lined face worried. "My lord, Lady Meredith Hale is here with the full council. They're requesting immediate audience." Aldric and Seraph exchanged glances. Unscheduled council meetings meant trouble. "Show them to the Great Hall," Aldric said, forcing himself to stand. "I'll receive them there." The council had assembled in full formal regalia, all 7 members present. Lady Meredith stood at their head, her silver hair bound in intricate braids that spoke of ceremony. Beside her, 3 loyalists wore expressions of concern. The 3 former Victor supporters looked uncomfortable. "Commander Ironwood," Meredith began formally, "we come on a matter of succession and legitimacy." Aldric's chest tightened. "I've already named my heirs. A regency council until Marcus comes of age. This was voted and approved." "The vote was close," Elder Matthias said. 4-3, and now questions have arisen about the unusual nature of this arrangement. "What questions?" "Whether 4 inexperienced young men can truly govern," one of Victor's old supporters said. The man's name was Garrett, a minor lord who'd profited from Victor's corruption. Whether shared power leads to strength or paralysis, whether this kingdom needs a single strong alpha to survive what's coming. "What's coming?" Seraph asked sharply. "Word from the Eastern Territories," Meredith said. 3 pack lords are forming an alliance. They see the North as weakened by war and internal transition. They're positioning to challenge our borders come spring. Aldric's tactical mind processed this immediately. 3 Eastern packs meant potentially 800 warriors. More than enough to exploit a perceived weakness. "Then we'll meet them with strength," Kael said from the doorway. All 4 nephews had entered quietly, drawn by the formal summons, united strength. "The question is whether 4 voices constitute unity or chaos," Garrett pressed. "In times of war, Packs need decisive leadership, a single alpha's word, not committee decisions. You propose what exactly? Roderick's scholarly voice was edged with steel. That we abandon the regency, choose a single successor? The council proposes a test, Meredith said, and Aldric heard the careful neutrality in her voice. She was threading between factions, trying to preserve both tradition and change. A trial by combat. Let the 4 of you compete. The strongest becomes sole alpha, the others serve as advisors. No. Aldric's voice cracked like a whip. I've already made my decision. The regency stands. With respect, Commander, Garrett said carefully. You're dying. What happens when you're gone and the council reverses this decision? Better to settle it now, while you can still guide the outcome. He makes a point, one of the loyalists admitted reluctantly. If we're going to change course, better to do it with your blessing than after your death. Aldric looked at his nephews. Kyle stood ready for combat, always first to embrace conflict. Roderick calculated angles and outcomes. Gareth looked thoughtful, already seeing the political implications. Marcus watched them all with those unnervingly wise eyes. If the council demands trial by combat, Meredith said softly, we can make it meaningful. Not just strength, but strategy. Leadership. All the qualities an alpha needs. A series of tests over 3 days. The winner earns the throne. The others retain positions of honor and influence. And if we refuse, Cale demanded, then the council may choose for you after Commander Ironwood passes, Garrett said bluntly. And our choice might not honor his wishes at all. Political extortion, barely disguised. Aldric saw the trap clearly. Accept the trials now under controlled circumstances, or face the council's whims after his death. The boys decide, he said finally. Not me, not the council. They're the ones who will live with this choice. Let them make it. 4 pairs of eyes turned to each other. Aldric watched them communicate without words, a language of glances and subtle gestures they'd developed through months of training together. Finally, Marcus spoke. I propose a compromise. We undergo the trials, all 4 of us. But the winner doesn't rule alone. The winner becomes first among equals, senior voice in the regency, but not absolute authority. We still govern together, just with clear leadership. That's not what the council, Garrett began. That's our offer, Kyle interrupted. Take it or we refuse entirely and take our chances after Uncle Aldric dies. Meredith studied the 4 young men with shrewd eyes. Then she smiled. I accept on behalf of the council. 3 days of trials. The winner becomes first regent. All 4 maintain council seats. What are the trials? Roderick asked. Day 1, combat prowess, individual duels and team tactics. Meredith counted on her fingers. Day 2, strategic wisdom, war games and political negotiation. Day 3, leadership heart, how you handle crisis, make impossible choices, earn loyalty. Acceptable, Gareth said, speaking for all of them. When do we begin? Tomorrow at dawn. Prepare yourselves well. That night, Aldric summoned each nephew individually. He had final words for each, and time was running out. Cale came first, his warrior's pride barely masking deeper uncertainty. You're afraid you'll win, Aldric observed. The boy's shoulders tensed. How did you? Because I know you. You've worked hard to overcome your demons. Bloodlust, arrogance, the need to prove yourself through violence. Aldric gestured for Cale to sit. Being first regent means those demons will be tested constantly, every decision questioned, every choice second-guessed. Then maybe I shouldn't win. Maybe you should. But only if you remember what you've learned. Aldric leaned forward. Strength isn't domination. It's service. The strongest alpha is the one who lifts others up, not tears them down. Can you be that leader? I don't know, Cale admitted quietly, but I want to try. Then try with everything you have, and if you win, remember, your brothers aren't subjects. They're partners. Use their strengths to cover your weaknesses. Kyle nodded slowly. What if I lose? Then you serve whoever wins with the same dedication you'd expect from them. That's what brotherhood means. What pack means. Roderick arrived next, already thinking 3 moves ahead. "You're calculating odds," Aldric said, "trying to determine outcomes before they happen." "It's what I do." Roderick adjusted his glasses nervously. "Kyle will dominate combat trials. Gareth has the best strategic mind for infrastructure. Marcus has oracle visions and raw power. What do I have? The ability to see connections others miss, to turn disadvantages into advantages." Aldric pulled out a map. "During the blood unification, I won 3 critical battles despite being outnumbered." "How?" Roderick studied the map, his mind engaging. "You used terrain, weather, intelligence about enemy supply lines. You won before the fighting started." "Exactly. Combat prowess matters, but wars are won by logistics and planning. Your gift is seeing the whole battlefield, not just the clash of swords." Aldric met his nephew's eyes. "Don't try to be Kyle. Be yourself, magnified. Let Finian help you. 2 minds united are stronger than one alone." "He's not allowed in the trials." "No, but he can help you prepare. Love is its own kind of strength, Roderick. Don't discount it." Gareth came third, bringing the scent of fresh timber and stone dust. "You've been building again," Aldric noted. "Designing a new granary system. If we centralize storage but distribute backup supplies." Gareth trailed off, catching himself. "Sorry, I get lost in the work." "Don't apologize for finding your passion." Aldric stood, moving to clasp his son's shoulder. "I spent my whole life as a warrior because it was expected, because it was necessary. But I would have been a better scholar, a teacher maybe. We don't always get to choose our paths. You chose yours. You unified the North, through blood and violence, through killing my brothers." Aldric's grip tightened. "You have a chance to build instead of destroy, to create legacy through construction, not conquest. That's a gift, son." The words slipped out naturally. Gareth stiffened. "You haven't called me that before." "I've thought it. Just didn't have the courage to say it." Aldric forced himself to meet those familiar eyes, his own eyes, reflected in a younger face. "Whatever happens in the trials, know this. I'm proud of you. Thomas would be proud of you. You've become the kind of man worth calling son." Gareth's throat worked. "I miss him every day. I know, and I can't replace him, but I can try to be the father you deserved, for whatever time remains." They embraced, awkward at first, then genuine. 42 years of missed connection compressed into a single moment of understanding. Marcus arrived last, just before midnight. The youngest nephew moved with quiet grace, his silver-touched eyes reflecting moonlight. "You've had another vision," Aldric said, not a question. 3 of them, all showing different outcomes for the trials. Marcus settled cross-legged on the floor, young but ancient in his prophet stillness. "In one vision, Kyle wins and leads us to military glory, but exhausts the pack through constant warfare. In another, Roderick wins and brings prosperity, but we're unprepared when true threats come. In the third, Gareth wins and builds wonders, but political enemies exploit his gentle nature. And in the 4th vision, the one about you?" Marcus's eyes widened. "How did you know there was a 4th? Because you're here, because you're uncertain. What did you see?" "I win," Marcus whispered. "But I'm too young. I make mistakes that cost lives. The pack fragments under my inexperience." His voice cracked. "Uncle Aldric, what if I meant to lose? What if winning would be a disaster?" Aldric knelt before the boy, ignoring the pain in his joints. "Oracle visions show possibilities, not certainties. The future isn't written in stone, it's written in choices. Then how do I choose? You compete with everything you have. You let the trials reveal who you truly are, and you trust that whatever happens, your brothers will be there." Aldric touched the boy's silver-touched hair. "You're 13, Marcus. You're not supposed to have all the answers. That's why you'll have advisors, partners, family. What if I disappoint everyone? You'll disappoint someone no matter what you do. That's leadership. The question is, will you disappoint yourself?" Aldric stood slowly. "Fight tomorrow like you're meant to win. But remember, winning isn't about being the strongest. It's about being strong enough to carry what comes after." Dawn broke cold and clear. The trial grounds had been prepared in the great courtyard. Combat circles marked in the snow, weapons arrayed, the entire pack gathered to witness. Aldric stood on the reviewing platform with Seraph at his side and the council arrayed behind them. Below, his 4 nephews waited in separate corners, each attended by supporters and seconds. Lady Meredith raised her hand for silence. "These trials will determine First Regent of the Northern Reaches," she announced, her voice carrying across the courtyard. 3 days, 3 tests. May the worthiest lead, and may the others serve with honor. The combat trials began with individual duels. Each nephew faced 3 seasoned warriors in succession, judged on technique, strategy, and control. Kale dominated through sheer skill. Months of clean training had honed his natural talent into something formidable. He moved like water and struck like lightning, defeating all 3 opponents with clinical efficiency. But Aldric noted something crucial. Kyle pulled his killing blows, showed mercy when he could have ended fights brutally. The boy had learned restraint. Roderick struggled with pure combat. He was knocked down twice, bloodied once. But each time he rose, adjusted his strategy, used his opponent's strength against them. He won 1 bout through cleverness, lost 2 on points, not dominant, but competent. Survivable. Gareth fought with workmanlike precision. No flash, no fury, just solid technique and stubborn endurance. He won 2 bouts and drew 1, earning respect through sheer determination. Marcus shocked everyone. His late bloomer wolf was massive, but he'd learned to use his size with surprising grace. He won all 3 bouts, but barely. Each victory came through instinct and raw power, rather than refined skill. "Kale leads after combat trials," Meredith announced. "Tomorrow, strategic wisdom." The second day brought war games. Each nephew commanded a simulated force of 100 warriors against varying scenarios: ambush, siege, defensive holding, rapid strike. Roderick excelled here. His mind saw patterns and possibilities others missed. He won 3 of 4 scenarios, losing only the rapid strike exercise where pure aggression trumped careful planning. Kyle won the rapid strike handily, but struggled with defensive holding. His aggressive nature fought against patient tactics. Gareth surprised everyone by dominating the siege scenario. His understanding of architecture and engineering turned fortifications into weapons. He won 2 exercises outright. Marcus showed promise, but inexperience. He won 1 scenario through an oracle vision that revealed enemy strategy, but failed the others when his foresight didn't provide clear answers. "The trials are tied," Meredith said as the second day ended. "Tomorrow's leadership trial will decide everything." The third day brought crisis. An actual crisis, not simulated. Runners arrived at dawn with word from the eastern borders. The 3-pack alliance hadn't waited for spring. They'd launched a winter offensive, catching the border territories by surprise. 12 villages burned, hundreds of refugees fleeing west, enemy forces advancing despite the snow. "This is the leadership trial," Meredith announced grimly. "How you handle this crisis, together and separately, will determine First Regent." The 4 nephews gathered in the war room with Aldric, Seraph, and the council. "We need to respond immediately," Kale said. "Hit them hard before they can consolidate." "We need to secure refugees first," Roderick countered. "Protect the displaced, then plan our response." "We need to understand their strategy," Gareth added. "Why attack now? What's their true objective?" Marcus closed his eyes, seeking visions. "They expect us to split our forces. Want us to rush east while leaving our center weak. There's a secondary attack coming from the south." All eyes turned to the youngest nephew. "Are you certain?" Meredith demanded. "I see it. 3 days from now, while our attention is on the eastern front." Marcus's eyes opened, silver gleaming. "This is a coordinated assault meant to exploit our transition period." Silence fell as the implications sank in. "Then we need to defend on 2 fronts," Kyle said. "Split our forces carefully." "We need allies," Roderick said. "Call in markers from neutral packs. Build a coalition." "We need to fortify the center," Gareth said. "Make our heartland unassailable." "We need all of that," Seraph cut in, "which is exactly the point. No single nephew can handle this alone, but together you might." Aldric watched them look at each other, saw understanding dawn. Kael leads the eastern response, Roderick said slowly. Mobile warfare, hit and run, your specialty. Roderick coordinates the coalition building, Gareth added. Diplomacy and logistics, your strength. Gareth fortifies the center, Kael agreed, makes our heartland a fortress. And Marcus? Roderick looked at their youngest brother. You coordinate intelligence, use your visions to guide our movements, be our eyes. Together, Marcus whispered. We lead together. That's the answer, Meredith said softly. That's what we needed to see. The next 3 weeks were a crucible. Kael led 200 warriors east, engaging the enemy in running battles through snowbound forests. He won more than he lost, bleeding the attackers until they withdrew. Roderick negotiated alliance with 4 neutral pacts, bringing 600 additional warriors to Ironwood's banner. He traded concessions and promises, building a coalition that would outlast the immediate crisis. Gareth transformed the Central Territories into a defensive labyrinth. When the southern attack came, as Marcus had foreseen, it shattered against prepared positions. The attackers retreated with heavy losses. Marcus coordinated everything from Ironwood Keep, his visions guiding troop movements and predicting enemy strategies. 3 times his foresight prevented disasters. Twice it revealed opportunities for decisive victories. And through it all they worked as one. 4 different minds with 4 different strengths, united by common purpose and mutual respect. Aldric watched it unfold from his sickbed. The silver rot had progressed to the point where he could barely stand. Seraph rarely left his side now, reading reports to him, helping him track the campaign. They're magnificent, he whispered one night, coughing blood into a cloth. Better than I dared hope. They learned from the best, Seraph said, her scarred hand gentle on his forehead. From you and from each other. The trials are over. Meredith declared it 3 days ago. No first regent needed. All 4 share authority equally, deciding major choices through consensus. She smiled. Exactly as you planned, you manipulative old wolf. I didn't plan the eastern invasion. No, but you'd have been prepared to use it. Her voice was fond despite the accusation. You knew they'd rise to meet a real threat, knew they'd choose partnership over competition. I hoped, didn't know. He reached for her hand. Seraph, I need you to promise me something. When I'm gone, don't. Listen, when I'm gone, keep them honest. Keep them united. You're the only one who can call them on their mistakes without triggering pride or resentment. His grip was weak but insistent. Be their conscience, their balance, their guardian. I promise, she whispered, for as long as they need me. They'll always need you. 2 nights later, Aldric Ironwood called his nephews to his chambers one final time. They came together, all 4, still wearing the dust of their victories. They'd just received word that the Eastern Alliance had sued for peace, offering reparations and non-aggression pacts. The crisis was over. You won, Aldric said from his bed. Speaking took effort now, each word a battle against failing lungs. Not just the war, the trials, the right to lead. Right. We won together, Kael said firmly, just like you taught us. I'm dying tonight, Aldric continued, pushing past their protests. I can feel it. The rot's reached my heart, so I need to say this while I can. He looked at each nephew in turn. Kael, you learned that strength is service, not domination. Never forget that. The moment you start ruling through fear instead of respect, you've lost what makes you worthy. Roderick, you proved intelligence can be as powerful as any blade. But remember, people aren't pieces on a game board. Sometimes the illogical choice, the one made from heart rather than head, is the right one. Gareth, my son. The word came easier now. You showed that creation matters as much as destruction. Build things that last. Leave legacy in stone and steel and growing things. Marcus, the oracle touched. The future king. Aldric smiled at the boy's surprise. Yes, I see it. In 10 years, maybe 15, your brothers will step aside and give you the throne you're meant for. You'll be ready then. Trust their guidance until that day comes. Uncle, Marcus whispered, don't go. I don't have a choice, boy. But you do. Choose to stay united. Choose to be better than I was. Choose to build the kind of kingdom worth dying for." He coughed, tasting copper. "Seraph?" She was there immediately, taking his hand. "I need them to leave now," he said softly. "Just you and me at the end. Is that selfish?" "You've earned selfish." She turned to the nephews. "Go, give us this moment." They left reluctantly, one by one. Kyle gripped Aldric's shoulder. Roderick kissed his uncle's forehead. Gareth stood silent, tears streaming. Marcus simply whispered, "Thank you," in a voice thick with understanding. Then Aldric and Seraph were alone. "I wish we'd had more time," Aldric said, "to explore what this could have been between us. We had enough. 6 months of partnership worth more than a lifetime of empty connection." She climbed onto the bed beside him, careful of his failing body. "You taught me I could be more than my father's weapon. That's a gift beyond measure. You taught me I could feel again. After Lyanna died, I thought that part of me was dead forever." His hand found hers. "Not love. I'll never love again the way I loved her. But this, companionship, understanding, it's precious in its own way." "I'll watch over them," Seraph promised. "Your nephews, your kingdom, everything you built. I'll keep it safe. I know you will." His breathing grew labored. "Seraph, I'm afraid of dying, of what comes after. I killed my brothers, my own blood. For the greater good, yes, but their faces still haunt me. What if there's judgment waiting? What if... Then face it the way you faced everything else. With courage and honesty." She squeezed his hand. "You weren't a perfect man, Aldric Ironwood, but you were a good one. You built peace from chaos, raised 4 boys to be better than their fathers, gave a broken Blackthorn daughter a home. Not bad for a dying old wolf. Not bad at all." He closed his eyes. His breathing slowed, and in the hour before dawn, with Seraph's hand in his and his nephew's future secured, Commander Aldric Ironwood, Alpha King of the Northern Reaches, let go. The funeral was held 3 days later. Warriors from all 7 Pact territories came to honor the man who'd unified them. The great and the small, the noble and the common, all gathering to pay respects. The 4 nephews stood together at the head of the funeral pyre, each holding a torch. "He was a warrior," Kyle said, lighting his corner. "But he taught us that war's purpose is peace." "He was a king," Roderick said, lighting his corner. "But he taught us that power's purpose is service." "He was a father," Gareth said, his voice breaking as he lit his corner. "Not perfect, but present when it mattered most." "He was a builder," Marcus finished, lighting the final corner. "And he built us, made us into something worth being." The 4 torches touched the oil-soaked wood simultaneously. Flames roared upward, carrying Aldric's body to whatever waited beyond. Seraph stood apart from the crowd, watching smoke spiral into the winter sky. Maris appeared at her elbow, the old housekeeper's lined face wet with tears. "He loved you, you know," Maris said quietly. "In his way. Not like Lyanna, but something real nonetheless." "I know, and I loved him too. Still do." Seraph's ruined eye tracked the smoke. "He gave me something I'd never had. Family, purpose, home. Then honor that gift. Stay with them, guide them." "I will, for as long as they need me." 5 years passed. The Northern Reaches prospered under the 4 regents' rule. Each nephew had grown into his role, their combined leadership proving stronger than any single alpha could have achieved. Kyle commanded the armies with fierce loyalty and hard-won wisdom. He'd married a warrior woman from the Eastern Pacts, cementing the peace alliance. They had 2 daughters who trained with swords before they could write. Roderick served as chief diplomat and strategist, his partnership with Finian now formalized through mate bonds. Together they'd revolutionized trade agreements and defensive pacts. 3 neutral pacts had joined the Northern Alliance voluntarily, drawn by prosperity and fair governance. Gareth had become master builder, transforming Ironwood Keep and expanding infrastructure across all territories. Roads, bridges, granaries, schools. He built a kingdom designed to last. He'd married quietly, to a scholar who shared his love of creation. They had a son. Marcus, now 18, was being groomed for eventual sole leadership. His oracle visions had grown stronger, guiding the Regency through 3 potential crises before they could manifest. But he was content to learn, to grow, to let his brothers teach him. And Seraph, she remained Lord Commander, but had become something more. Mother figure, advisor, guardian. The nephews called her aunt now, with genuine affection. On the 5th anniversary of Aldric's death, they gathered in the garden where Lyanna's moonflowers bloomed year-round now, a permanent reminder of hope renewed. "He'd be proud," Kyle said, looking at his brothers, "of what we've built, what we've become. He'd probably find something to criticize," Roderick added with a smile. "Too much expansion, not enough security, something. He'd tell Gareth his bridges are over-engineered," Marcus said, "and me that I rely too much on visions instead of instinct." "He'd be right on both counts," Gareth admitted. "But he'd also acknowledge we're learning, growing." They stood in comfortable silence, 4 brothers who'd become one leadership. "I've made a decision," Marcus said finally, "about succession." 3 heads turned. "I'm not ready to rule alone. Maybe I never will be." The youngest regent met each brother's eyes. "I propose we continue as we are, 4 leaders, 4 voices, forever." "That's not what Uncle Aldric wanted," Kyle protested. "He said you'd be ready in time." "Maybe I will be, but I don't want to." Marcus's voice was firm. "We're stronger together. Why break what works?" "The council won't like it," Roderick pointed out. "They expect traditional succession. The council serves us, not the other way around." Gareth's builder's mind was already restructuring. "We could formalize it, make the 4-regent system permanent law. Each generation chooses 4 leaders who balance each other. A council of equals instead of a single alpha," Kyle mused. "Revolutionary." "Aldric would hate it," Seraph said from behind them. They turned to find her standing at the garden gate, her scarred face thoughtful. He was traditional at heart, believed in strong, singular leadership. But he also believed in adaptation, Marcus argued. In choosing what works over what's always been done. Isn't that why he chose us? All 4? He chose you because he saw potential for something new. Seraph moved closer. "And you're right. This works. Better than any of us expected." She paused. "So make it official. Write it into law. Create a legacy that honors Aldric's vision while exceeding his dreams." "You'll help us?" Roderick asked. "Always." 10 years after that, the northern reaches had become legendary. Other kingdoms sent delegations to study the 4-regent system. 3 neighboring territories adopted similar leadership structures. The concept of shared power, balanced authority, was spreading. Marcus, now 28, had finally agreed to transition to sole leadership. But not as Alpha King, as first among equals. His brothers remained in their positions, his partners rather than subjects. On the morning of his coronation, Marcus visited Aldric's tomb. The monument had grown over the years, no longer just a stone marker but a memorial garden where moonflowers bloomed eternal. "I hope I'm doing this right," Marcus whispered to the stone. "Uncle, I hope you'd approve." "He would," Seraph said, appearing from the shadows. She was 68 now, her dark hair gone silver, more scars added to her collection, but her single eye still burned bright. "You've exceeded everything he hoped for, because we all did it together, just like he taught us." "Exactly like he taught you." They stood in silence, guardian and king, honoring the memory of the man who'd saved them all. That night, under stars bright as shattered diamonds, Marcus Ironwood was crowned first leader of the northern reaches. Not king, not alpha, just first among 4 who ruled as one. And in the memorial garden, moonflowers bloomed brighter than ever before. 20 more years passed. Seraph Blackthorn died at 88, surrounded by the 4 nephews she'd helped raise. They were old men themselves now. Kyle 68, Roderick 66, Gareth 64, Marcus 48. They buried her beside Aldric's tomb, marking her stone with a simple inscription: Guardian, Warrior, Family. At the funeral, Kyle's eldest daughter, now a general herself, asked her father about the old days. "Tell me about Commander Ironwood," she said. "About the blood unification. About how it all began." Kael looked at his brothers, looked at the two graves side by side, looked at the moonflowers blooming eternal. "It began," he said slowly, "with a dying king who had 6 months to save a kingdom, and it succeeded because he taught 4 boys that strength comes from unity, not domination. That family is chosen, not inherited, that the best leaders are those who lift others up. And it continues," Roderick added, "because we remember those lessons, apply them, teach them to you and your generation." "Uncle Aldric saved us," Gareth said. "Aunt Seraph shaped us. Together they built something that outlasted both their lives. And we honor them," Marcus finished, "by being better than they were, by building on their foundation, by never forgetting that power is responsibility, not privilege." The general nodded thoughtfully. "I understand." "Good," Kael said, "because someday you and your cousins will lead this kingdom. When that day comes, remember, together you're unstoppable. Apart, you're vulnerable. Just like the 4 regents, just like us, just like Uncle Aldric taught us to be." 50 years after Aldric Ironwood's death, the Northern Reaches celebrated its longest period of continuous peace in recorded history. The 4-regent system had been adopted by 12 territories. The concept of balanced leadership had revolutionized pack politics across the continent, and in Ironwood Keep, in a garden where moonflowers bloomed eternal, a new generation of leaders gathered to honor the memory of the dying king who'd changed everything. His nephews were long dead now, but his legacy lived on, in the 4-regent system that brought stability to chaos, in the moonflowers that still bloomed in winter's heart, in the stories told to children about the Alpha King who taught strength through service, in the memorial where warriors still came to pay respects. Aldric Ironwood had died at 62, eaten from within by silver rot and time, but his vision lived on, and would continue living, passed from generation to generation, as long as people remembered that true strength comes not from standing alone, but from standing together. The last Alpha had become eternal, and the North endured.